By dawn, the city no longer felt real. Police tape wrapped entire blocks, like warning ribbons. Sirens wailed non-stop, overlapping until they became part of the background noise. News vans lined the streets, reporters whispering the same question into microphones. How could this happen in a single night? Inside a biker bar on the east side, the air smelled of gunpowder and spilled alcohol. Tables were overturned. Pool cues lay snapped in half. The walls were chewed apart by bullets, and bodies covered the floor in grotesque stillness. Men who once ruled these streets now lay motionless, eyes open, expressions frozen between shock and disbelief. Nothing had been stolen. Everything had been used. Across town, the city aquarium was sealed behind heavy doors. Inside the largest saltwater tank, several workers and a night guard floated lifelessly, drifting with the slow currents. Sharks passed them without urgency. Triggerfish pecked curiously. The water glowed an eerie blue under emergency lighting, turning death into something disturbingly calm. At a downtown construction site, investigators stood in silence. Several men were still standing upright, arms half raised, faces contorted. Their skin had hardened into something brittle and gray. They weren't statues. They were bodies that never got the chance to fall. Outside the city limits, 2 police officers lay near a restricted industrial zone. Their patrol car doors were open, radios still crackling with static. Their uniforms were scorched, skin burned beyond recognition, as if the air itself had turned against them. And miles away, on a quiet farm where dawn mist clung to the grass, an old man hung tangled in twisted wire along a fence line. The land around him was untouched. The animals grazed peacefully nearby. One night, one city, too many deaths to explain. To understand what happened, you had to go back to when the city was still alive, still laughing, still unaware that something small was already moving through it. The biker bar had been loud that night. Music thundered through the speakers. Heavy boots stomped against wooden floors. Men laughed, drank, and boasted about territory, money, and fear they inspired. Behind the bar, hidden from public view, was their private armory stacked with firearms. That's when someone heard it. A faint rustling, metal shifting where it shouldn't. One biker grabbed his revolver and pushed open the armory door. It was empty. Every rack stripped clean, every gun gone. Panic spread fast. Music cut out. Chairs scraped across the floor as men scrambled, shouting over one another. They searched under tables, behind counters, everywhere, except the shadows gathering at the back of the room. They never saw it coming. At the aquarium, closing time was almost peaceful. Janitors moved quietly, mopping floors. Night guards checked locks. A marine biologist lingered late. Coughing and heading toward the octopus exhibit she'd spent years studying. When she reached the tank, her breath caught. It was empty. Every octopus gone. No alarms. No broken glass. No signs of escape. Only something else. Tiny wet footprints leading away from the tank. Before anyone could speak, they heard it behind them. A soft, rhythmic slapping sound. At a construction site across town, floodlights flickered on as workers prepared for a night shift. Plans were laid out. Concrete mixers warmed up. Everything was on schedule until a worker noticed something missing. 4 bags of cement. Not tools. Not machinery. Just cement, the exact amount needed for the foundation. As workers searched the site, confusion turned to unease. Then something stepped out from behind a stack of steel beams. Its surface scraped against itself as it moved. Slow, heavy, watching. 2. Police officers received a call about a breach at an old industrial storage site, sealed years ago after hazardous materials were buried beneath a massive stone dome. When they arrived, they noticed the fence had been cut. The hole was low, small, too small for an adult. They stepped through anyway. A strange warmth spread across their skin. Not heat, something deeper. The air shimmered, bending light like glass. They turned toward the source. There was a flash, and then screaming. On a farm, far from the city, an old farmer followed one of his goats toward the edge of his land. He stopped when he reached the fence. The barbed wire was gone. Not cut. Removed. Something clinked softly behind him. Then the city collapsed into chaos. Back in the biker bar, the tapping sound grew louder. Tap. 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 Something limped into the light. At first glance, it looked almost harmless. A teddy bear. Then they saw what it was made of. Gun stocks for limbs. Ammo belts wrapped around its torso. Rifle barrels forming thin, spindly legs. Scopes and laser sights where eyes should be. The bear raised its arms and opened fire. At the aquarium, a grotesque shape stood atop the tank. A bear-like form made from fused sea creatures. Tentacles writhing together in impossible coordination. With a sudden violent motion, it lashed out, wrapping staff members in slick, crushing grips and pulling them underwater. Bubbles rose. Then, stop. Then, stop. At the construction site, workers stared as a figure formed entirely from cement let out a grinding, metallic scream. The sound froze them in place. Their skin hardened, joints locking as their bodies slowly transformed. They were aware the entire time. Near the industrial zone, the officers never stood a chance. And on the farm, barbed wire moved like living vines, wrapping tightly around flesh and steel, binding a man to his fence as the goat stared on. By morning, the creatures were gone. No tracks, no witnesses. Only destruction. Authorities searched for answers, but found none. No fingerprints, no biological evidence. No explanation that fit within reason. Only a pattern. Each horror was built from what was taken. Weapons. Cement. Living creatures. Radiation. Wire. Whatever moved through the city didn't just kill. It constructed, and somewhere quiet. Unsensum Small was already searching for materials again.